Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I am Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Norm, you just bought concert tickets.
I know. I was in
Really?
between podcasts.
Just a second?
Just as
Imagine,
podcast.
imagine
They
a
went on
world
sale 10 minutes ago, and I had
Imagine a world.
where you can buy concert tickets from an ATM.
Right. And $20 concert tickets are only $59.95 after the convenience
Don't
fees.
forget the $15 super convenience fee for the venue now.
I know a guy, speaking of ATMs, I know a guy who works for a major bank, we'll say, who programs all the graphics.
Really?
ATMs.
Oh.
He's an artist, designer. And the cool thing is they can program it so they know like your birthday. And so like if you go to the ATM close to your
On your birthday?
you get a different graphic. You get like balloons or something.
Oh.
And they can target very specific people and he can
Nice.
design it and just shoot it in.
I don't like that. I like my machines dumb and unfriendly. Like the worst, one of my least favorite things of the last year is when you buy a new piece of consumer electronics and instead of like saying, here's the EULA, it's all written in horrible lawyerese. And then it says, here's what this means. It means that if you don't like what we do, instead of suing us, you have to go to talk to a special man about how we disagree.
Or the ATM that says, choose your language, English. And then it says, you've chosen English. Press OK to choose English. I thought I just chose English by pressing yes.
Why does that not just stick? Why is that setting?
You can stick if you use ATM login to your account. You can.
It's
Really?
It drives me freaking crazy.
Yes.
I put in my at any rate.
Yeah.
User interface.
This week's episode's
What
technologies.
tickets did you buy? What
Neutral Milk Hotel.
Ooh.
what is that?
Oh, you don't.
Is that a band?
It's a band that
Sounds like it could be a movie by One Car Y.
it's a
They're
band
Canadian.
from Atlanta.
Oh, no. Yeah, okay.
or in Georgia, and they disappeared for a long time. They're coming back.
Oh, all right.
They're
They're
wonderful.
what, like mid-2000s indie
early
pop?
thousands. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
You had an interesting day yesterday, as I understand it.
I had
well, for us, it was yesterday. For people
Yes.
listening, it was like a week and a day
I want to
ago.
talk about technology was the segue.
I had a very interesting day. So during our planning week, we got an email, Jamie and I, from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
The makers of mosquito nets and
Cures of malaria.
Right.
And I mean, really, it is, they have given away, they've put more money into helping people than any other foundation in history.
And I love the approach that they take because they've taken a really data-driven approach and said, how many people can we help per dollar spent? And that's what they're like. That seems to be a large. And it's not ephemeral help.
No, it's not ephemeral help. And
everlasting.
it's really basically that, Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, has taken...
Not anymore, though.
Right, because he's given so much away.
Yeah.
But the fact is that he took his two resources. One was money, but the other was his ability to be smart about how to spend that to the best return, which is what made Microsoft such an incredible behemoth, and applied that towards philanthropy. And Jamie and I are huge believers in their mission. We've been following them for years. So they reached out to us and said, every year they write a letter that's sort of a mission statement of what the foundation's going to do that year. And this year, they wanted to do something a little bit differently. There are myths that people believe about charitable giving, and they really wanted to dispel those. And they thought, if they're going to be myth busting, who better to do that with than the actual myth busters?
Oh yeah, you guys do that.
Right. You don't have $1 billion to donate to charity.
Right, but we do we do have some science and some humor to bear, just to briefly explain the myths that they wanted to dispel. A lot of people, and these aren't just things that the general public believes. Like Bill says that he gets buttonholed by world leaders who believe this sometimes, which is things like giving money to a third world country is just pouring it into the hands of corrupt officials. That's one. Another is that
That's true, right?
no.
Oh.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not even a little bit. In fact, the Gates Foundation takes it very seriously about making sure that they are actually getting value for the money they're putting in and learning how to do that in the different places that they
treat it
go.
like
So they have metrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one is the idea that poor countries are destined to stay poor. People believe that, well, that they're just poor for a reason and they're not going to do better, and you're not going to be able to cause an uptick in that country's overall wealth. That's another myth that they have plenty of metrics to show that no, that's you can actually change the direction of a country's economy.
And it takes less than you would think.
Yes. And then the third one, and this was Melinda's particular bailiwick, was about birth control, family planning, and basically health care so that people live longer. And there are people who think, wow, well, that's just going to lead to overpopulation. And they wanted to dispel all of those and wanted to figure out a way to do it with us. So we came up with, I don't want to spoil the actual lines that we came up with.
You can see it now, right?
You can see it now. So we will post the link for going to see it when this podcast
That
airs.
is a thing we always say.
Yes. Do we always do it?
Most of the
We'll
time.
do it this time.
On this one,
Occasionally, we'll definitely do it this time.
on this one, we'll definitely do it.
Making a note.
But so it not only did we want to do it, but amazingly, their timeline was very tight. And it worked perfectly with our ability to do it because after our planning week, we had a few days off before getting into shooting. So to give our researchers and associate producers time to set up locations, set up materials, and get us some things so that we could jump in and start filming Mythbusters. During that time off was when the Gates Foundation wanted us to come up to Seattle. So they flew us up. It was yesterday. Or no, it was the day before yesterday. So they flew us up to Seattle in the morning. We went to the Gates Foundation, which is an unbelievable building.
You describe it.
It's
Where in Seattle?
Is it glass?
It's right across the street, effectively, from the EMP and the Space Needle.
Oh,
I know
okay.
exactly what
So
that is.
out of all the windows, you see this gorgeous views of the Space Needle and the EMP.
Did you take the monorail there?
No, we were driven. We drove there.
You can take the monorail.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Every
there's-
time
it's
I
a-
go, it's monorail.
It's one of the only functional monorails outside of Disney World in the world.
So the building, it's incredibly green. It has things like living roofs and a 1 million gallon cistern for rainwater that runs all the faucets and toilets in the place. It is.
Do they do like electrical generation and stuff like that?
I don't know. It's one of the greenest buildings in Washington, if
Constructed.
not the West Coast. from
Not
what I
difficult
understood.
for Seattle, and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Seattle's very green.
Right. But how do I put this? It felt the closest analog I have is having worked up at the ranch, at the Lucasfilm Ranch. It's like you're sitting there having lunch on the lawn at the ranch, and you look around and you realize I'm in the middle of a project generated by a very big thinker.
Yeah.
Say what you will about George, and I've said
Yeah.
lots of things about his.
You've talked a lot of smack
Yes.
about George.
But he is a giant thinker,
Yeah.
and his projects are beautiful. It can be. The ranch is a magnificent thing. Something like 800 people work up there, and you can't see any of their cars, and you can't see any of the buildings from any of the other buildings, and it feels like a beautiful, idyllic place. And he's built it to be a respite. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation feels like a similar level of really big thinking of how to build an organization that, I mean, the type of advanced humanitarian and philanthropic stuff that they do there is incredible. And the environment that they've created for something like 1,200 people to do it in is also incredible. And that is a great confluence because it's self-generating in terms of the energy.
And it, like the thing that you notice when you go to Microsoft or Google or any of the kind of these places that tend to absorb the smart people is, and it's unusual. At least I feel like it's unusual for me, but you walk into one of these rooms and you realize that you're far from the smartest person in the room. Which that kind of came out wrong, but the upshot is by building these environments for people to come work in, they are able to get people who are much more interested and are contributing at a much higher level.
Absolutely.
And are really, really engaged. And it is like walking around Microsoft in the early 2000s, you had a very specific vibe that I don't think I've really felt other places, maybe Apple.
Right. So I will also say one of the things I noticed walking around, and we were walking around for a while with this wonderful guy who is Melinda's chief of staff and his kids. And I was saying, first of all, I noticed, wow, is that a genuine Banksy over there? And he said, yeah. And I said, I noticed something unusual about the art all over the walls here. And he said, what? And I said, it's actually good. This is something. And he said, that's really driven by Melinda. But that, I normally hate public art and I love art. but I think that most public art is total shit.
You mean the stuff that people pay for because they have to put it in the lobby of their building in San Francisco?
And it always feels like a compromise. It feels like barely a notch above hotel room art.
It's inoffensive.
It's inoffensive and not interesting. And all of the art was genuinely challenging and interesting and beautiful and unique and it made you think. It was that was like a metric for what they really believed in and what they consider a priority in this place.
Well, the interesting thing about the Gates Foundation is the thing that is the problem for most people is not a problem for them.
Right.
Like getting the money isn't a problem.
Right,
How much time they have
They're
to
cool,
spend,
right?
And be efficient with that money.
And where they can get the biggest impact. So did you get to spend time with Bill and Melinda?
A little bit of time. They are obviously they are incredibly
I would
busy
assume
in
so.
a way that I don't think any of us will ever
For
understand.
you to say
So
that?
right. So yeah.
No. I mean, we
You're right. Just to be clear, I thought I was busy, and then we met you and Jamie, and that's a level of busy that I didn't think existed. So like we're talking orders of magnitude.
We are talking orders of magnitude. I mean, when we contacted them, their best day was actually tomorrow this week to get together. And I'm having surgery tomorrow, a minor surgery, but I'm having surgery, so I absolutely couldn't reschedule that. And they said, well, they could get together for 30 minutes on Tuesday. Like that's how busy they are.
So did he like walk in right at the clock tick and then walk out right at the?
It effectively did.
Yeah.
It was sort of like working with Obama.
Okay.
Right. So he walks in. We had already shot everything we needed except for his parts. And then they moved out. They were very sweet. They were very nice. It's totally amazing to shake hands with the man and his wife. They are, I'm a huge admirer. I will say that we shot 3 different endings, and I don't know at this point while we're recording this which ending they're going with. One of the things we pitched them was to go with all 3 so that whenever you click the video, you weren't sure which ending you were going to get.
Mrs. Peacock is the killer in one.
Exactly. Clue. I kept on referring to that. All 3 endings are hilarious. The first one, they were worried was a little bit mean, like Bill was being a little mean. And I said, before he'd shown up, I said to his people, no, that's the point. Bill has culturally traveled the full gamut from being culturally considered a villain to a saint.
He's Nixon.
He's moved he's moved much farther towards sainthood than Nixon could ever get. And we're playing on that joke. I said, we're playing on that joke. We are making, our very presence belies the fact that we believe that. And that's why the joke is funny and biting. And they were like, well, do you have anything else? And I pitched this other joke and I thought, well, that's kind of funny. It's a little gross, which is also funny. Do you have anything else? And I pitched this third joke that was playing off a classic idea about what Bill might ask Mythbusters to do. But his staff said, we're not sure we want to pitch that to him. Are you willing to pitch that to him?
The answer is always yes.
And just to be clear, the Bill Gates pitch is, through all of technology, one of the scariest, because he has a reputation for taking a pitch, knowing more about the thing that you're pitching than you do when you take it, and then dismantling people.
Well, so
like people came out of his office broken after pitching products that didn't go well.
And one of the things that they wanted, here's where I got a little bit of confidence. One of the things they wanted us to participate in this for was to hopefully get the video to have more reach, to quote unquote, go more viral. And that is something that Jamie and I think have a handle on in terms of what about our brand will make someone call up their friend and say, dude, go to YouTube and check this thing out.
Yeah.
That's the trick. What is the thing that will make it be talked about rather than just be earnest or kind of funny?
Yeah.
And that's where this joke fell. And I felt confident that I was pitching a joke that would achieve their ultimate goal.
And he's not a humorless guy. He is a funny guy.
He understands reach. He did he did a Reddit Secret Santa thing.
Absolutely. Right.
So
that was, totally does.
But even more than that, the Jerry Seinfeld commercials that they did, which were absolutely just
those were bizarre and amazing.
They are wonderful.
Yeah, totally agree.
Full of whimsy.
So we're almost done shooting, and the director says, Adam, do you want to tell Bill the ideas you have? And I did, and he and Melinda conferred with each other through, a secret language of eye contact. Obviously, they've got to be quick on their feet, and they agreed to do them, and we shot it all 3 different ways, and all 3 of them are great.
Fantastic.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing what makes it, and I hope they go with all 3 because we had a great time. The staff up there that we worked with, both the social media and the video crews, the directors, everyone was fantastic.
Well, they have only the best people.
I know that you could be listening to this and thinking, well, Adam has to say that because this is a public outreach thing and he believes in the mission and he would have to say that. But it's totally freaking true. These were great people to work with. It is really rare that we get pitched something that we instantly want to do, number one, that we have time to do, number two, and that the people we're working with get us, we get them, and doing it is really easy and fun, number three. And this fulfilled all of that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm super jealous.
Oh, it was so
What was
great.
his presence like? Like when he
Is
he tall?
No, he's not tall.
I've only seen him on stage, so
no,
it's tough to say.
he's a little shorter than me.
Okay.
I think I can't be sure about this, but I think Melinda's a tiny bit taller than him.
Was she wearing
but just
heels?
like how
don't
he
know.
interacted with people and
It was look. I have some insight into this. I know what it's like to walk into a room and know that everyone in that room has been waiting for me and has, they have some expectation about what it's going to be like to meet me. There's a lot of pressure being in that position. And I know enough to know that it's 10 times that for Bill and Melinda, that they get out of their car and they go and do something and they got to put a face on to meet the faces that they'll meet. And they got to deal with this thing and they got to deal with the fact that everyone in the room is thinking about the fact that they're there. And
they all want
intense for
something.
everybody. Even if what they want is to not upset them or to make things easy for them, that is still a pressure on the person that it's happening to. So I'm very sensitive to that. So I, for one, I seek to make the greeting really quick and, bulleted so that we can get out and not to be standing around and staring at them. It's all a long way of saying that, Bill and Melinda showed up. They're among their staff that they've worked with a long time. And I just saw it and we all saw it. Jamie and I were up there. We brought our executive producer for Mythbusters, Dan Tapster, who's great at helping us. Did that reading go well, or could we add something to that? And we did a couple more takes because of Dan's input, which was awesome. And we also brought Kristen Lamosny, our social media person, who was working with Bill and Melinda's social media person to make sure we get enough outreach for this. So we all made sure that we weren't just standing around staring at Bill and Melinda. But the ultimate goal was to get them in and out quickly. Yeah. Like I said, they're really busy. So it wasn't like we got to spend time hanging out or talking about stuff. This was all business.
Okay. Yeah, if I was meeting Bill Gates, it would be the meter of like how much money this is costing them. Like when we hang out with you, Adam, the meter moves. Maybe not as fast as with Bill Gates.
Do you remember the? I don't know if you remember this, but back in the 90s when he was the richest man in the world, there was a thing of like Bill could throw $100 bills over his shoulder and it wouldn't be worth his time to pick them up.
Yeah.
I'm sure he hates hearing all that stuff.
Clearly he wanted to be remembered for something other than that.
Yes. And boy, he has really done that. I told his staff about that great poster of all the lives that the foundation has saved. And at the bottom it says, "Suck it, Batman. This is what a billionaire does to help people." Like they've actually figured out that over all of the comic books and movies, Batman has helped something like 800 people. Superheroes. And Bill and Melinda have like saved 6.1 million lives.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So, I hope someday, I would love someday to be able to actually talk about the stuff that they do and have a real conversation with them, because I know that they're brilliant and I really believe in their mission. And I know that would be a great conversation.
If only we had a show where you talk to people about things and stuff.
I would publicly announce that that I would kill to have Bill and Melinda on the Talking Room. They would be exactly...
Joey just passed out.
They would fit exactly into the thematic line of who I like to talk to.
They're making something.
They're making something. They're making it on a gigantic scale on terms that are really specific and rigorous. And that is the hardest thing to do in the world, in my opinion.
So I have one last question.
Yeah.
And then we'll roll on to some other stuff. But when you usually when you shake someone's hand, and when I shake someone's hand whose work I admire, you kind of want to say, man, I really love X. What is X? Is it just, oh, it's so nice to meet you when you're introduced to Bill?
What did I say?
Yeah.
I said, I shook his hand and I said, it's really a pleasure to meet you. I'm a really big fan of your work. That's
always a good way to go.
Very in and out with that.
Yeah.
I appreciate personally, and I'll tell you this, if you meet me and you're wondering whether to play it cool or just to tell me that you're a fan, I prefer it if you tell me you're a fan.
It's much less awkward all
It's
around.
much less awkward. I have had people hang out in circumstance with me for an hour and then tell me at the end that they're a giant Uber fan. And I actually feel like it makes me feel a little weird, like you've been holding back this time. And I'd rather just understand where we stand.
Just get it
If
out.
you've never watched the show, I don't care. I genuinely don't care. I don't need to believe that everyone's watching the show. My ego's not tied up in that. I like meeting people and talking about shit that I'm interested in.
You don't mind.
No. And, when I'm busy, if someone is going to just be quick about it, that's also great. Tell me that you're a fan and we can move on. So that's my goal. When meeting someone on that level of Bill and Melinda, I just want to be like, I'm a big fan of your work. And if we get to talk further, all of that is gravy. Okay. But I am not going to seek it out. It's like I met Peter Gabriel years and years ago. And I always go back to this in my mind because I met him. I got to art direct a set that he was playing on, and then I got to hear him do a sound check of the song Here Comes the Flood, which is one of my all-time favorite Peter Gabriel songs. And then I went up to him afterwards, and I could see him see me coming, and I could see him while he was talking to someone, seek to be generous and shake
available,
my hand and available, but I could also see that it made him nervous because he's Peter Gabriel, and he's been meeting people he doesn't know for decades. And I remember every aspect of meeting him because he's so important to me. I remember that look on his face and my response to it when I meet people who I know that I represent something to them. However, on whatever level and whatever scale I represent, I recognize that I'm representing something to them. And it's made me more bold and more reserved when I meet people that I admire. And it's a fascinating thing, because these people do stuff you admire. They're really busy. They're also,
it's an awkward transaction for everyone involved. I mean, just to be clear,
it is. You're absolutely right.
It's
That's
not
exactly
just
what it is.
When I walk up to somebody who I really admire and I want to introduce myself and say hi, it is awkward for me. I've been on the other side of that. It is also awkward on the other side.
Yeah.
Because you want to make the other person feel at ease. And sometimes it's a tough transaction.
That turns out to be the way.
Let's come up.
That turns out to be the way that I keep it from being awkward. And to my best ability, I want to make the interaction engaging and fun for the person I'm meeting. I want them to go, "Oh, that was really cool." So that's actually always the thing that's running through my mind, and that actually makes the interaction really. Excuse me. That makes it good. That
makes
gives
it more
me
fun.
something to work towards. Yeah,
exactly. And on that note. Unless there's anything else.
I just want to say years and years ago, I was in New York. I remember this, 42nd Street and 5th Avenue at about midnight. And I looked up and there was this beautiful woman on the street. And I realized, it's Spike Lee's sister, Joy Lee. There she is. She's just gorgeous. I love her. And I walked up and I said, "You're Joy Lee." And she said, "Yes." And I said, "I love you. Have a great night." And then I moved on. And
I bet she still remembers that.
That is an ideal interaction as far as I'm concerned.
Maybe not at midnight. Maybe dial it back a little bit at midnight.
Specifically at midnight was how to keep it as short as possible.
That's true.
Right?
That's absolutely
Because we're not going to be walking in the
God.
same direction chatting about shit. I just wanted to I was on a bicycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She's scared shitless at that point. This crazy guy walked up to me and said he loved me and then ran off.
Crazy little white boy.
Little
on a
ginger.
bicycle.
And on that note, I think that'll do it. We'll be back next week with another episode of Still Untitled, The Adam Savage Project.
Absolutely. Oh, we're going to link here to the Bill and Melinda Gates.
I made a note.
Okay, great.
I have a
And
reminder.
there's also, we have tons of behind the scenes pictures.
Oh, cool.
That Kristen's going to be both putting up on our Twitter feed and on Tested. Some really great stuff. They actually built a set inside one of their conference rooms that's a hilariously elaborate set. And when you see the before and after pictures, your mind will be
Did you have churros?
No.
Bill Gates loves churros.
Oh.
From the Seinfeld thing.
From the Seinfeld.
Oh, no. I forgot about that.
Oh, I think maybe everyone did. We have premium memberships.
We
if
do
you're
have
interested in
premium
that.
memberships. There's all sorts of cool stuff
There's
in them.
good stuff on the site. As always, there's a ton of good stuff that's available for everyone. There's also some other behind the scenes stuff and some special, more Adam, Will, Norm, Jamie driven stuff for premium members. You can find out all about it by going to tested.com and clicking on the premium link at the top of the page.
And frankly, we take your comments and your comments and criticisms seriously. And if you have things that you specifically want to see in the premium membership that you think added value, stuff that we haven't thought of, maybe it's more minutia about stuff, we want to hear about it.
Email, leave a comment on the podcast. Our email address is editors@tested.com. That goes to Norm and me. And then we filter it out from there. Or you can also send us Twitter messages at Will Smith, at Enchan, probably we'll leave you out of this. But send them to us and we'll filter them out and percolate up the good stuff.
Terrific.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.